Hi, I'm the lone journalist for KRAZ TV with another book review. That's right, this one is about Winston Churchill. Churchill, Master and Commander by Anthony Tucker Jones. Winston Churchill at war 1895 to 1945. Sounds like most of his life, doesn't it? Well, the greatest part of it. It is Anthony Tucker Jones is a former intelligence agent or officer. He's a highly prolific writer and military historian with well over 50 books to his name. His work has been published in a many array of magazines and online. He appears regularly on TV and radio, commenting on current and historical military matters. Anthony has a lifelong fascination on Churchill's extensive military career, both in uniform and as a politician. Churchill has been a constant presence in many of his other books, but this is the first time he is the sole focus. For further information, Anthony's website can be found at www.atuckerjones.com. It is a book from Osprey Publishing. Winston Churchill was one of the greatest military and political chancellors, that's a good term for it, of all time. From a young age, his desire for public attention and his propensity to take risks to achieve this meant that inevitably on occasions he gambled and lost spectacularly. His remarkable lust for military adventure and glory led him to action in Cuba, India, Sudan, South Africa, all in a semi-official capacity as he remained a commissioned officer in the 4th Hussars. His association with the British Army was long held and widespread, and away from the 4th Hussars he served on the northwest frontier in South Africa and on the Western Front in World War I. It was these military experiences that firmly convinced him that he was equipped to oversee British strategy during World War II, and he did this in his combined role as both Prime Minister and Defense Minister. The results were disasters in Norway, North Africa, Greece, and Crete during 1940 and 41. Yet on occasions he got it just right. His refusal to surrender in 1940, the British miracle at Dunkirk, and the victory in the Battle of Britain showed that he was a much-needed decisive leader. Likewise, his dogged persistence in North Africa and during the Battle of the Atlantic paved the way for D-Day and ultimate victory. In Churchill, Master and Commander, Anthony Tucker Jones explores the extensive military and political career of UK's most renowned and respected wartime leader, and examines how his formative military experiences influenced his strategic leadership at the highest level. That's being generous to this guy was a piece of work, I'm telling you what. Ever since he was little, well, here's what happened is they're the Duke of Marlborough. I mean, they could have been in line for royalty, or else his grandfather really supported the Queen and really helped to bring the nation to its greatness long before Winston here was even born. But he felt he had to keep up with the family tradition, and he was well known. He was always being groomed for a political life, and mostly military people were always moved in and out of civilian political office, and they could take off and do whatever they wanted, and assign me to that division, and I want to go to Africa. And even when he was told not to go, he said, well, I'm going to figure out how to go. So he acted with official, or got somebody to underwrite him as a journalist. So therefore he was able to get into some of these countries. Then when he saw he first went to school at Harrow's, I guess, and he just had to be in the rifles, you know. He wanted to have a uniform on, and he wanted to go see the action, and everything. He broke his neck nearly to get into every skirmish and situation he could. And when he did lead, he was like Napoleon. He was fearless. He was crazy out there. I mean, he'd jump up in front of them and walk back and forth, yelling at them, "Go get them!" He was the most energetic, crazy dude. I'm telling you, this guy here could have been killed. He was nearly killed several times, and yet he actually only got a scratch or two in his whole life. He wasn't really that, but he was lucky, I guess, or a fool, I don't know. But he finally got into World War I. I mean, that was his Africa tour before he got into World War I, and then there he did most of his. So he got to be First Admiralty, and that's where Gallipoli was blamed on him, but it really wasn't his fault. But he would tag on to impossible odds, and 250,000 or more, 205,000, all died at Gallipoli trying to just scale, getting off the boats, and they were hemmed in there for months, and it was a real big disaster, and it saddened him, and he thought, boy, I'm not going to be liked at all after my involvement with this. But he has been exonerated through history, and well, the British, when they fought, they always bit off more than they could chew. And so, I don't know. Anyways, what was really amazing, though, is that he loved gas. He loved mustard gas. And he thought it was going to be more humane and all that. And actually, though, in the statistics, very few people died, but it rotted their lungs out, and they were a husk the rest of their life. So, but only a small handful actually just died right there in the battlefield from the gas. The rest of them, got a lungful, and that was it. So, but anyways, the Geneva Convention finally outlawed gas, mustard gas, what he liked, and so they didn't use it anymore and stopped. But after World War I, the Bolsheviks were fighting, and he did not like communism, and so they decided to wangle his way to help them, the White Russians, fight the Reds, and of course they lost in the end. But he figured that if we could mount more skirmishes and all that and keep them busy, that we might be able to win over. And so he wanted to use gas again. They started complaining, but they were using the gas too. And he said, well, isn't that funny? He said, they go cry to the United Nations about us using gas on them, but they're using it on the other people in Russia too. So he said, isn't that ironic? So, but there was hardly a time that he wasn't situated at all in his life, hardly until afterwards, that he wasn't into looking at military procedures and a lot of times. But when World War II happened, he said, I have got a plan, and he wangled his way with Lloyd. After Chamberlain got out, he was put in, then there was Lloyd George, and then finally he became the prime minister, and so he created a defense minister too, so he could involve himself in the military operations during them. He made a few bungles, and a lot of his bungles cost other people their lives, and I guess that's where I don't know, think a little bit differently about it, but he did help, and in the end, he was revered as somebody who actually, and he did not like Hitler, and he didn't like Joe Stalin, but he had to put up with Joe Stalin, but he warned everybody. He said, we're going to get screwed in this deal afterwards by Stalin. He's going to take over and snag all these countries, and then we're going to have to fight communism just like we fought fascism. So the book really ends at the end of his tenure of the wartime years after World War in 1945. Then he was voted out of office. He did come back. He thought, well, how can they not love me? But I guess they had enough of war and all that. So he was still respected. He did come back for a short while in 1951 again as minister, but that didn't last, and they put him out to paint. Now, he was a great painter, or painted a lot, but the only time he said he ever got to paint was in Marrakesh, when he went to Casablanca and North Africa and all that, just one time. But he always was on the move. He came to the United States and had a big relationship with Roosevelt. And then what really burned him at the end, he said that Stalin had got a hold of, put the flea in the ear of Franklin Roosevelt, and so they kind of cut out Churchill for a little of accolades and this and that really saddened Churchill. But anyway, it's a fascinating story. It's a true story. It's somebody I wouldn't want to have their life, but it was his life, and it was famous life, and he was always in the news, and, well, I could carry on and on. But get the book like we did at the Tucson, Pima County Library is where we got ours. Probably your library has it too. And it's called Churchill, Master and Commander by Anthony Tucker Jones. Thanks for watching KRAC TV and other great book reviews.